Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta, Swaminita Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharini, Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschajadesha Dharini, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Good. So, first of all, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate your theme here. My authenticity is my power. So I reflected on the word authenticity on my way getting to the spot where I am in Mohawk territory. It is officially Mohawk territory. Just want to let you know. And it made me think authenticity, okay, means genuine, be real, and so on. Don't be a fake. Don't be a phony. Be who you are. And I recall in some of my power walks across the country, here and in Canada and Ireland and Israel and a few other places where I had the chance to interact with some really nice people. And they all felt that whether it was media folks or just the regular rank and file anybody off the street or motorists, for instance, they would say, oh yeah, okay, you're a monk. All right, yeah. You're walking across. Yeah, you're trying to promote spirituality. Yeah, you're trying to learn simplicity and, trying to take in all the negatives and positives of life, meeting with the elements, shaking hands with the sun and the moon and the wind and the rain and so on like that, and the bugs. So people kind of expect that monks do these types of things. They perform tapasya, austerity. And so they like the fact that there is, that we're being authentic about it. And not just, I was very sensitive about the fact that I didn't want to come across as somebody who's out there to convert people to my way of thinking. I was just being very generic about it, say that spirituality is understood by all. It's a universal practice and exercise. It's a cultural norm that resonates with everybody. And that's really in my heart what I was trying to do. So I think people really appreciated that, that it was the effort or the efforts of doing the long walks and getting out there, meeting people is something that monks have traditionally done throughout the globe, coming from different backgrounds. And so I really appreciate that. And so when you are real, then you have power. And so when it comes to the psychophysical makeup of a human being, which Krishna addresses in chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, he's simply talking about living up to your psychophysical self, which in Sanskrit is called guna and karma. Guna means what is your nature, and karma means basically it's getting to what's your behavior, how do you react to things. So those two items pretty much determine a person's persona, their individuality. And so when you are yourself, when you're not a facade, then people appreciate, then you have power. And so some of us are Brahminical people, some of us are, that means you're visionary kind of folks, you're blessers. When you are a Kshatriya, that means you have a power to manage. It means you have the ability to move people, stir them up, get them excited about something. And you're also very keen to protect this community that has been shaped up. And when we talk about the Vaishyas, if you have that, you're like a smaller king or queen. It means you're a Vaishya and you serve as the stomach to a community, the economics. And then when you're in the category of Shudra, which most of us are, which most of the population fits in that category, you're just like you're a supporter, you're a genuine real supporter of the whole social structure. So I think people appreciate it when you are real, and Srila Prabhupada would, and Bhaktisiddhanta, Prabhupada's guru, would take stabs at people who would say, you're a Brahmin because your father's a Brahmin, okay? And therefore that puts you into that category. And there's fallacy behind that approach. It doesn't, let's say, gel with Krishna's definition of a person's psychophysical nature. Okay, so in regards to that, we all have different natures, we all have different tendencies, and we all have different types of careers. And in regards to this, I would just like to open up by talking a little bit about Krishna's nature and how he dealt with people when he entered Hastinapur or Indraprastha, which is the Delhi area, 5,000 years ago. Indraprastha was the capital of the Pandavas, or the Yadu dynasty. And when Krishna approached Yudhishthira Maharaj, who happened to be a little bit senior to him in years and also in status in a certain way, as Yudhishthira was the king, Krishna came to him, he lowered his head before Yudhishthira, and then Yudhishthira smelt the head of Krishna, which is usually what seniors do to those who are junior to them in status. But when it came to Nakula and Sahadev, Krishna accepted their protocol practice, which was to put their heads at the feet of Krishna. And then, of course, he blessed them with his hands. And then, when it came to Bhima and Arjuna, there was a fraternity dynamic there. They would embrace and hug. You know? I think a lot of people might kind of like we can stop there in terms of relationships. That's where everybody kind of likes to be. We know that we survive in this world because of friendship power. And the other day, it sort of crossed my mind, or I should say, crossed my phone when I heard the old song. You might want to listen to this and write it down. The old song by Carole King, sung especially by James Taylor. You've Got a Friend. It's actually beautiful. He's got a golden voice. He plays the guitar. It's her lyrics, but it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And that song does remind me of how important friendship is. Can I give you some quotes here on friendship before we move along and explore friendship in Krishna's world and how also what it means, how it's relevant in our world? So first of all, these I've just put out, I searched 3 nice quotes. Okay, a real friend is one who walks in when the rest of the world walks out. Okay, and here's another one from C.S. Lewis. Friendship is born at the moment when one person says to another, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." You know, sometimes when you talk to people, they're in sometimes a forlorn mood, and you could see it on their face. So with empathy, you approach them and say, "Well, what is the problem?" So, "Well, this happened to me, and this tragedy, and this, you know, this trauma, and so on, and therefore I'm in the glum mood that I am." And so then you ask, "Well, what have you gone through?" And then you're about, "Well, I went through similar kind of experience." "Oh, really? So, you know, so we can be friends now." Okay, so that's kind of like the conclusion people arrive at when you've had similar experiences. Then it makes life a lot easier to tread through. Here's a nice quote from Winnie the Pooh. We have mostly people here on this Zoom from Canada. Did you know that Winnie the Pooh is a Canadian bear? Did you know that? Okay, here's the story. The story attached to a story attached to a story. Before I became a devotee, a brahmachari, a monk, I hitchhiked across Canada, and I was coming back east from out west. And everyone was saying, if you want to really kill some time and get a guaranteed ride that covers a few hundreds of miles, hitch the train at a place called White River. It's in northwestern Ontario. Okay, so I heard about it and I did it. And it took me all the way to Toronto. Okay, what's significant about White River and Winnie the Pooh? Well, Winnie the Pooh was a little black cub bear. It was female. And she was discovered by a person with the Canadian Forces. And he was in White River. He stopped off at the train. And someone had this little cub bear on a leash. I think it was an orphan bear. He fell in love with him, paid $20 for him, which would be about $2,000 now, maybe more. And that was his pet. And he called him Winnie because he had settled in Winnipeg, and he named the little cub after the name of the city, Winnipeg. If anybody's on there with Winnipeg, here you're getting educated. Okay, so this army officer was assigned to France, First World War. He took the cub with him. They landed at London. He couldn't take the cub with him all the way to France. He left him at the London Zoo. And that is how the Milne, the writer about Winnie the Pooh, shaped that character. He and his kids saw the bear, fell in love with him. Okay, so Winnie the Pooh is kind of a friend to me because he's a Canadian bear. And he had this to say. If you live, he's saying this to someone else, if you live to be 100, I hope I live to be 100 minus 1 day. So I never have to live without you. Okay, so that's a statement about friendship. And it's beautiful. Here's something that was shared to me by David, Bhakti David, who lives in the Toronto Temple. He said, you should never let weeds grow on the path to your friend's door. That means that you're frequently seeing your friend. And I would say that living in the ashram, I would have not stayed if I didn't have friends. If I was lonely, and that does happen sometimes, even in the ashram, if I was living seemingly solo, I would feel quite depressed. So friendship is really key to success for us in life. And it has much to do with reciprocity. I hope you're familiar with that word. Reciprocity means doing things to achieve mutual benefit. It's not exactly like back scratching. You know, when people say, I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back, it sometimes has connotations of being a little bit selfish, you know. But when it comes to real friendship, it means I'll do anything for you, buddy. I'll do anything. I'll give you my life if I have to. And, you know, somebody asked me recently, what's the best way to, I hate that word, preach, but what's the best way to get someone interested in higher consciousness, in Krishna consciousness? What do you say? You know, what do you do? You know, what philosophical point should I bring out to that person to get it to my side to appreciate Krishna consciousness? And my answer to that person was, listen, it's no special secret. The secret is just be kind, make a friend, you know. It can even be small talk. And I was reminded by Rabinder Sarup, who was the temple president of Philadelphia for many years. When Prabhupada had visited there in the early days, the devotees were staying in sort of like a townhouse arrangement. And it was done in such a way that the house that you were attached to, kind of like a semi-detached situation, the two people or households living to each other, they'd end up at the same door together. So there was this older woman that would end up seeing Prabhupada. Sometimes they would meet at the door. That is to do with his, coming or going. And then they were talking like small talk. It wasn't philosophical. It's not that Prabhupada always would have to say, you're not these bodies, we're spirit souls, Krishna's God and all that. He just was building friendship with this older woman. And then he'd open his mouth, do you still have all your teeth? And they would laugh and they get on the platform of, being human. So I find that the best way to share Krishna consciousness is to just be very simple and be very kind, kill people with kindness. And then they're willing to learn from you. And I learned this also from my walks across Canada. Again, I would like to sort of, not to be redundant, but reiterate, I was not out there to convert. I was there to make friends with people. I was on a friend-raising venture, not a fundraising. People who do marathons across the country, they're usually raising awareness or raising money for a cause like cancer or this or that. And I would tell these reporters and journalists, they'd ask me, what are you doing this for? I said, I'm doing this just to encourage people to get more to their spiritual side of life. This is like a friend raiser. You're not raising money? They'll ask, no, I'm not raising money. It's not a fundraiser. It's a friend raiser. I said, I like that. I'm going to put that in my article. So I think people really appreciate what this means to be like friends. And when it comes to more intimate relationships, we all know, some of you have gone through it already. There's the romantic period, there's the honeymoon period, and then after things might change a little bit, you might hit some speed bumps, and you wake up one morning and says, what did I do? I got hooked up with this person for life. I made some promises, and I'm not sure sometimes. I'm not sure if I want to share my space with he or she gets on my nerves about this and that. I'm not sure if I can really go there. I can live out my whole life like this. So this I see as a period in a person's life where you really have the opportunity through friends. So many doors of opportunities open up for you. Here's a chance to actually be real friends, and not just to tolerate. That's not always the nicest word, but to accept. This is my life partner. This is somebody I agreed to be with, to share time with. And even if he or she snores a little too loud, doesn't matter. It's, the person that you've agreed to learn to be with. And that was Prabhupada's idea behind these kind of relationships, marriage, of which he performed initially. And he backed off a little bit when he saw that devotees were not getting to that point of friendship with each other. So I think this is really key. And I'll just tell you with my own experience with my parents. And it's okay to say this. My dad was a very industrious type of guy, quite upbeat and everything like that. He was energetic, and he was healthy and strong like a bull. And my mother, she had a different kind of constitution, and she did have some mental challenges. So that created a lot of rift between them sometimes. And it was very difficult for us to go through that and to see those kind of things. But what was quite nice about what happened in the end after I have, 5 siblings, so there's 6 of us. We all moved on. Everyone got married except for me. And and then I saw my mom she was diabetic, and her one leg was turning black. It was kind of like time for her leg to go. So my dad just got into that servant role, that mood of sacrifice, which he always had. And then my mother her other leg was attacked by, this, blackness, and that had to go. And then shortly after that, she decided to move on into the next existence. But my dad would carry her, to her areas of service and so on like that. And it was so kind of sweet to see that and to hear about that. And so you could see that true friendship was established, like two lovebirds, like you cannot imagine. And so we saw that, and we learned from that. And it's not that you always learn from hearing; you learn much more from seeing. Just like Francis of Assisi, he once said, "Preach to the people, and if you have to, use a few words." So with that, like Prabhupada's aphorism, he often used this. He said, "Example is better than precept." So through our actions, it registers with people, whether it's children, the next generation, or the grandkids and so on like that, or even kids in the neighborhood. It would be like that. It's by your actions and your words that really tell a lot, and actions maybe a bit more. So I believe friendship is a very strong thing that needs to be cultivated. And we have examples of this by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And I want to share with you some of the things that are interesting. There's a term that is used. Krishna had different kinds of friends. Those who were of the same age, they were called Vayasyas. Vayasya, that's V-A-Y-A-S-Y-A-S. Vayasyas, people of the same age. And that is very important. Even I remember when I joined Krishna consciousness, you would kind of calculate who joined with me in the same week. You go, and will we ride together? Will we move together? Will we advance progressively together? And I remember if someone had joined the movement like 6 months before me, oh, he's so senior, he's so, beyond, above me. And that was the kind of mood we had. And then if someone joined 6 months after you, now you're kind of like, you're in a position where you can offer help to that person. And maybe you can even be friends. So the idea of friendship, this is Suridam Sarvabhutanam. One of the key verses that you're going to find that will help you in your life, to give you guidance, is found in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhoktarang yagya tapasam. I'll ask you to find it yourself. Bhoktarang yagya tapasam. That's the first principle of getting peace in your life. And that means Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer. He gets to enjoy everything. And even if he eats a lot, which he sometimes does, he doesn't get a stomachache, okay? Once in a while he gets a headache. We heard about that. But in general, he doesn't get reactions. He can do anything. So give him unlimited amounts, and that is called Bhoktirang Yagya Tapasam. He's the ultimate enjoyer, and it's not me. It's not about me, So it's Krishna who is the recipient of all our offerings. The next line from this shloka in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. Sarva means all, Loka, places, Maheshwaram. Maheshwara is oftentimes a word affiliated with Shiva. And Shiva means he's in charge, he's a big controller. After all, he'll destroy when the world gets corrupt, and he'll flush the big cosmic toilet for us, and he'll do a divine dance. So that is, Maheshwara is also attributed to Krishna. Maheshwara means the one who's owning everything. Sarvaloka, all the places, all the real estate, whether it's Mohawk territory or Ojibwe territory or Windbad territory. It's all really, somebody just popped it up, 529. Learn that shloka, folks. Okay, so 2 items that bring about peace in life. Here's another one. The last line, the 3 items that constitute the peace formula. Suridam sarvabhutanam, and that is to see Krishna as your friend. How is Krishna your friend? Okay, you can analyze this in different ways. He is your friend because he walks with you, or he sits with you, you know. Like we can be walking down the street and he's with you as Paramatma, you know, and he'll follow you from one life to the next. That's his kindness. That's his friendship. And Srila Prabhupada gave a nice example. When Prabhupada was in Toronto in 1976, he was walking through a park and he saw a sign and it said stoop and scoop. And Prabhupada asked Brahmananda Swami at the time, what does this mean? Brahmananda said, it means you have to, when you walk your dog, you know, and he wants to stop to do his little doo-doo, then you stop and you scoop it up. Prabhupada's remark at that time was, okay, that is the difference between us and them, meaning what people, dog owners do, and well, maybe what devotees may not do so much, own dogs, although there's no law against it. Okay, so Prabhupada spoke about like that the owner will stop for the dog out of love for the dog because he's friends with the dog, you know. And he explained that people walk their dogs, and it's quite common in India now as well as in the West. And the owner, the master, will stop for the dog out of love for the dog. So in the same way, the Paramatma accompanies us, and we go and do our doo-doo. Sorry if it sounds grotesque. And he'll sit there with us. He'll be right on the toilet, you know. And why does he do that? Out of love. Because Krishna knows that one day we're going to wake up. We're going to, and actually the toilet is a good place to be. I'm glad I'm not this body. It's a great reminder in the water closet, you know, to be able to say that line. Phew, I'm glad I'm not this body. So the Lord agrees to accompany us through thick and thin. When people do their marriage vows, they do that. They say through thick and thin. I married a couple in Peterborough last fall, and they wrote up the script pretty much. And in one sense, they said, whatever happens, even if you're a murderer, I'll be an accomplice. I'll stick it out with you. It was a little bit of a light note, and everyone got a good laugh out of that. And I did actually say that you know, that's, and the bride and bridegroom had to repeat it. So that kind of bondage, that kind of connection. I was talking with Stephen Phillips, who's from Trinidad, and he's Afro-Trinidadian, and I was telling him that like we were working on a play, an upcoming play, and he's got a great voice. And I said one of my favorite actors ever was Sidney Poitier, and he's Afro-American. And there was one movie that he did with Tony Curtis. It was I think he might be a Jewish background, but white kid, okay? Grew up in New York. And the film was called The Defiance. So they were actually convicts, and they were chained together. They managed to escape. And they struggled, and there was these bloodhounds after them, and you know, the posse was after them and everything like that. They managed to go for many days, maybe weeks, chained together, you know. Eventually they broke loose from each other, but it was very tough for them in the beginning. But eventually they realized one thing: hey, we have to be friends. We have to be friends. We have to be nice to each other. You know, one of my favorite films is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's a story of two women who were quite famous as child stars on the stage and in the movies. And 30 years later, they just were so resentful to each other. They just did not get along. And then the whole story unravels about what really happened, the truth behind one of them being crippled. And then the other one says, you mean you're telling me this story all this time? We actually could have been friends at the tail end before the police come in and put one under arrest and the other one dies at the beach. Anyways, I'm not saying you should go for all these references of movies, but I'm an actor and I have to just, tell all sometimes. Let us look for, here, I was going to share with you some things that Krishna experiences with his friends. And this is really fleshy stuff. It's really, really good. Krishna played with his intimate friends sometimes by fighting or wrestling with their arms, sometimes by playing ball, and sometimes by playing chess. Sometimes they carried one another on their shoulders, and sometimes they exhibited their expertness at whirling logs. That sounds like a Canadian thing, like old time. And the coward friends used to please Krishna by sitting together with him on couches or on swings, by lying together on their beds, by joking together, and by swimming in the pool. All these activities are called anubhava. So when you think about a friend, long-term friend that Krishna had, can anybody, with this little passage that I cited, can you think of a long-time friend that Krishna had? Anybody? Okay, so that means we're from Surabhi to Sudama. Oh, good. Well, that's a nice example, Sudama. Yes, I like that. I like that. I think there's another iconic figure but that over time they stayed as friends for forever, if I can use that term. Somebody else, Uddhava? Yes, okay. Yeah, good guess. I'm thinking of somebody else, and I'm going to hold it up just to give you an idea. Somebody's saying Balaram, but Balaram was his brother, and I know Balaram's appearance is tomorrow, so anyways. But I'm holding up something which offers a hint. Arjuna! Yes, Arjuna and Krishna. In fact, chapter 11 from the Gita, Arjuna is, after he has been revealed the universal form by Krishna, he said, I apologize. I give my heart out to you. I realize that I was foolish in the past. I understand you are the absolute. You are the divine. You are God. And all this while, I thought we were cousins, and I thought we were friends. We would sit on the same chair together, lie on the same bed together. We joked together. We were like real friends, but I realized another aspect of you. So I would say with that kind of measure, that expression, we can appreciate that they're lifelong friends. Check out chapter 4 from Bhagavad Gita, text 3. Krishna says, I'm telling you everything that I know, all that the acharyas have expressed through the parampara disciplic succession. Because why am I telling you and not others? Because for two reasons, two qualifications. One is that you are a very devoted person. You have lots of bhakti. And number two, that you are my friend. On the basis of these two platforms, I'm opening up to you and I'm telling you all. So that is, from chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita. So I think that those, when you're looking at the cover of the Gita, when you're looking at not just Krishna being the instructor to Arjuna, not just the guru, but actually they were friends. And again, I'll revert back to what I said earlier on. Through friendship, there is a basis there, a foundation, which brings you to greater territories. Can I read a little bit more? Okay. All the friends were very daring and would risk any difficulty because they were confident that Krishna would help them to be victorious in all adventures. Here's a key to having a successful friendship with someone. It should be lifelong, through thick and thin, through this and that. And, whether you walk through thorny bushes, or you walk through a swamp, or you walk through dry ground, high ground, dry ground, you're there, you're together, and you're there to help each other. Like if you go through bear country, whether it's grizzly or black bear, it's usually advisable, don't do it alone. Have somebody with you, just in case. Okay, so I think it's really important, that reciprocity, that mutual helping of each other, that is going to make a difference. So Krishna and his friends, they used to sit together and advise one another what to do. They'd offer suggestions, sometimes inducing one another to be engaged in welfare work. Sometimes they would offer betel nuts to one another, decorate one another's faces with tilak, or smear pulp of chandan on another's bodies. So like I'm in Mohawk country, and when I was a kid, I used to walk to school 1 mile to SS number 1 Harwich School, whatever it was. And it was on the Tecumseh Parkway. That's what they call it now. Tecumseh is my hero, one of my heroes. He made alliances with many people from different tribes or nations, and he was dealing with the European invasion. So he was a great hero, and he died, on the Thames River, which is right next to the road where I walk. And I always thought, he's my hero. I would think of 2 people when I was walking to school and back. I think of God, and I think of Tecumseh. And they have this tradition, at least in some of the nations, that where you put a cut in your hand, and you don't go too deep, and you do that with a friend, and you mix it, and then you're blood brothers, and that's supposed to be a bond that stays with you. So I never found a blood brother, but I guess I got it in a different shape and form when I moved into the temple with brahmacharis, living there. So the idea is, it's really a sharing experience. Friendship is all about that. And it has a lot to do with touching and laughing and joking, all the things that Krishna did with his friends, the imitating of the animals. When we were young, we'd build forts, we'd climb trees, we'd play Tarzan in the barn and swing and jump in the hay. And this really stirred up incredible friendship. And I probably did a lot more for your brain than just sitting in a square room and having a square computer in front of you with a square desk and so on like that. Our life was not square. So anyways, sometimes they would offer betel nuts. They would tilak. Sometimes for the sake of amusement, they used to decorate their faces in strange ways. Another business of the friends was that each of one of them wanted to defeat Krishna. So sometimes we get a little competitive with our friends, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially when we're young and energetic. We want to show who's the smarter of the two and who's the stronger of the two, and so on like that. Yeah, so that kind of sportiveness is concomitant, or part and parcel of what happens when you're friends as young persons. Let's say you do have a life partner, and now it's at a period you're not young and energetic anymore. You're at a point where you need each other's backing, and it's really, when it comes to friendship, it's all about complementing each other. So it was competition, and then it transforms into complement. They almost sound the same. To become, and that shows you that you're competent. You complement. What is it? You compete, then you complement, and that shows you're a competent human being, a competent devotee, if you will. And even if not a devotee, at least be a human, Prabhupada oftentimes said, if you can't be a devotee, at least be a gentleman. So that's the idea. Decorating bodies, and I find this very interesting and light. Another important pastime of the friends of Krishna was that they served as messengers to and from the gopis, the female friends, not the male friends. They introduced the gopis to Krishna and canvassed for Krishna. When the gopis were in disagreement with Krishna, these friends would support Krishna's side in his presence. But when Krishna was not present, they would support the side of the gopis. In this way, sometimes supporting one side, sometimes the other, they would talk very privately with much whispering in the ears, although none of the business was very serious. So this is really sweet, endearing kind of leelas and pastimes that the Lord enacts with his friends. Okay, so how are we doing for time? Somebody help me on that.
We have about like 40 minutes.
40?
Yeah.
Okay, and we want to give some time also to interactiveness, questions and answers, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Do you want to give me an alarm, wave a flag? Okay, so let us, isn't that sweet though, if I can, is that what I was just sharing with you about Krishna and his friends? Drawing upon Aristotle's components of what makes a real friend a friend. Here he goes. He says, it's someone that you would really enjoy being in that person's company. And friends sometimes, they build up an understanding. You don't always have to talk to them. You don't have to say, why don't you talk to me? So I don't have anything to say. Yeah, but I just need you to talk to me. So, well, just because I'm not talking doesn't mean I don't like you. I think we don't always have to say everything. We can enjoy each other's company just by being side to side. Aristotle also goes to say, be useful to one another. That kind of caring component in life is also a natural attribute, which we tag on to friendship. And then number 3, share a common commitment to the good, to be good. So yeah, taking up projects together, taking up assignments together. We are going to do this. We are going to, put some interest towards this charity or some donation, or we will do some volunteer work together. Or if we see someone is being abused and has become an underdog, we will together help that person and defend like that. That's real friendship, and according to Aristotle. So just to give some examples. So currently, I'm working on a project. The project is called Krishna and the Maple Leaf, and it's a book. And it's a book about all the devotees, Canadian and Americans, who shared time together in the early days, the pioneers. And so I'm calling all over the place. I said, we got this project. We need you to write up something or dictate. We'll get it out there. We'll transcribe it. Tell us about the early days. What was it like as a pioneer? Because we shared wonderful times together. Tell us how many police gave you a hard time, shoved you against the wall, or someone's going to tell me how many times you went into prison on behalf of Prabhupada and what happened while you were in jail. Tell us about how wonderful prasadam was and what was your favorite prep. Tell us about what were your favorite kirtans and what did you do during that kirtan? And all those, and when you met Prabhupada, all those very fine super fine moments. And so the book is meant to educate and enlighten people, let people know what we went through. The pioneers did a lot, and I can, let's say, polish my apples, and I was part of that time, and it really was wonderful. It was grand, and we were breaking ground. We were at the cutting edge of everything, and it was so nice to be part of that. So that's a project about fraternity, about friendship, bringing everyone together as best can be done. Mind you, it's like, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your sound changed just about a minute ago. We can still hear you, but it just sounds a little suddenly.
Well, I'll see what that means. Are we doing okay now?
It's the same. I think we can get by with this, but this sounds a little.
Okay. I'll try my best. I don't know what to do with my phone here.
Okay. No, that's all right. If we don't know how to fix it, we can still hear you. Okay.
Maybe there's a storm outside. There's lots of rain out there. Perhaps.
Maybe.
Is this okay?
I think we can make do with. We can hear you okay. Whenever you're ready, Miraj, we can switch to Q&A. We've got quite a few questions.
I think maybe it's best to do it now. I'll just. I think there's no way to wrap up on the topic of friendship. Just like you can never say goodbye to a real friend. You know that famous song, "Time to say goodbye." You know, it's such a tearjerker. You know, it's pretty hard to say. And lastly, I have traveled on the bus tour for 10 years. You know, 10 summers on the bus tour that went through the U.S., Canada, and sometimes Mexico. And when it was time for some of the kids on the bus to part with each other, they just hold on to each other for an hour. I'm not exaggerating, an hour. They just hanging on to each other because they built up such strong friendships. On the first day of the bus tour, they weren't sure about each other. They weren't even sure about their identity. I'm not sure if I believe in Krishna. I'm not sure if I believe in God. I don't know about this chanting stuff. You know? But by the middle portion, they really developed strong bonds. And by the end, when it was all over, time to wrap it up, wow, they were on each other, so to speak. It was so sweet to see. Good. So let's go at some of the questions, concerns you may have. And I'm sorry about the technical problems.
Thank you so much, Maraj, for the amazing session. It was just really great. So we have a lot of questions, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So the first question is, I have friends who are afraid to be themselves because they are gay. How can I help them?
Well, these days you have less fear to be gay than practically any other time in the world. Just because there's so much acceptance at this point in time. You're asking for how to deal with that matter. You know, whatever you are, orientation, whatever is your skin color, whatever is your religious affiliation, someone's going to have some prejudice towards you. There's no doubt about that. You know, like men do it with women, women do it against men. Nobody's free. You know? And so Krishna himself, if you look at his pastimes, he went through a lot of ridicule over and over and over again. And we can say it's not justified, but he just took it on like a camel in a caravan. When I was in the Pink City in India, what's the name of the place again? Jaipur. Some young Indian chaps came to me, hey, what do you like India? And I said, well, there's aspects of India that I like. There's some aspects I don't like, but I like that aspect. And I pointed to the camel that was going through the thick traffic. I like that part of India. And why the camel? Because the camel tends to not be bothered. Dogs will bark at its heels, and he just keeps going. He just keeps moving along like a camel. And there was thick traffic of all kinds. I remember seeing leftovers from those kind of buggies from the Second World War. I guess India bought some of those where they had a little extra passenger seat next to the driver. And they were going around. There was a lot of black soot coming. It was a horrid. I was in hell at that moment when they asked me that. When I saw the camel, look at that guy. He's just going through despite the difficulties. So whether it's a person having that orientation as a gay person, or whether you're a brown person and white people don't like you, or black people are prejudiced to you, or this or that, it really is, try to remember, I'm not this body, but I may have certain inclinations, and I'm born with it. And I have to accept it. God made me this way, you know. And, you know, what we do want to strive to do is not go so deep into sensuality, regardless of what is your background or orientation. What we want to do is establish a love for Krishna. That's the point. For a friendship to last, the only real friend, other than a friend in memory who has passed away, is Krishna. He's the only one. He'll always be there for you. So hold him in your heart as your friend, and live in less fear. That's what I would say. Live in less fear. There will always be some fear, because fear keeps you on your toes. It forces you to surrender to Krishna, the famous prayer by Queen Kunti, Vipada Santuta Shashvat. She said, let calamities happen. May they happen. They have happened. And every time they occur, we're forced to think of you, my Lord Krishna. And when we think of you, there will no longer be repeated birth and death. So fear is not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing or uneasiness in life. It just means that we have to come to a submission somewhere, to someone. And that person is Krishna that we identify. So, you know, again, it's like you too, me too. We're all, you know, everyone has got a good chemistry with some individuals and bad chemistry with others. People will ridicule. What are you going to do? Prabhupada took a lot of criticism, and he was misunderstood. And you cannot allow that to control your life. We have to live with strength, with conviction, with determination, and build on that. Then we'll be okay. There will be less fear through solidarity. But if you're standing alone, like Aesop's fables, and the Greek analogy is given there, that father was, the example was given when you have one stick, it's easy to break. But if you put a lot of sticks and bundle them together, it's very hard to break them over your knee, you know. But when you stand alone, you're very vulnerable. So let's not be vulnerable. Live with strength and identify your true identity. I'm a spirit and I'm not this body.
Thank you,
In
Mark.
fact, I think a lot of times gay persons, they have a little bit of, there's a strong female, strong male, and they kind of understand the two sides a bit more than what would you call heterosexual. So they have some gifts. So look at your gifts that are given to you. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Thank you, Marge. I just wanted to let you know that your sound is back on, so that's great. So the second question is, sometimes I don't feel like I fit in with my friends at school or at the temple. because I want to follow the principles and be serious about my bhakti. It feels
Oh, then you
lonely.
should join the temple, be a brahmachari or brahmacharini. You fit right in. Go ahead, sorry.
It says, it feels lonely. Can you give me some advice?
It feels lonely. I would say that for lonely folks, it's always good just to be busy, you know, keep active, because, a big part of you is this machine known as the body. And when you keep active and you do things for people, I would say that's the strongest position to be in. Do something selfless, not for gain, not for profit. Do something for other people, and you'll see a reciprocation come right away. You'll see a smile that just is oceanic, and you will then you will mirror that. You say, "Hey, I made a friend here. I made a friend. I don't no longer have to feel lonely." So loneliness sometimes comes from not feeling appreciated. So do things that will bring about that sense of gratitude from others. So, and I think another way to answer the question is that please really believe that Krishna is in your heart. He is with you through all the turmoil, through all the difficulties. So like in my case, I was a bit of a misfit. I also didn't fit in. I didn't fit into society. I'll be right up front and say it. I couldn't get into it. I remember taking my girlfriend onto one of those rides at a country fair, and it was like turbulent. It was horrible, and I didn't fit into that game either. And what happened was my dinner just came up and sprouted out into the atmosphere, and it went in swirls like the ride itself. And I'm sitting next to this lady, and I thought, and I was only there to try to impress her, to make friends, and I guess I didn't really impress her. It was very embarrassing, and it put me into a humble state of mind, and that is also good. Humility, fear, all these components of life are not bad. What you have to do is to know how to accept them and how to turn them in your favor. Yeah, so loneliness should not be there when we're doing service together with other people, when we're involved in projects. Naturally, friendships develop. Does that help out?
I hope it did for the person who asked the question.
No, just like sometimes, have you ever seen those, you hear about those guys that worked in the gallows. They worked in the gallows, they had to row the boat, and they were whipped if they got weak. Well, they had strong friendship. They had strong sense of brotherhood because they were doing things together. And so that's the formula that Prabhupada gave. And I know that when we're young, there's egos clash, and sometimes there's jealousy and envy, and we get a little bit overly competitive. If it goes to the extreme, yes, then it's harsh and devastating. But let's not go extreme. Let's act in goodness, which means to be moderate in all we do. And if anybody's lonely out there, please come. I've got a shoulder that you can lean on. Of course, we have to social distance. That's the problem, right? Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Marge. So the next question is, sometimes I find myself putting too much energy into failed friendships or relationships, but I'm scared to channel that energy/love into Krishna because I don't feel his presence. How can I know that he is really there?
You can know about Krishna's presence through his devotee, because a devotee who acts like a person who acts like a devotee is demonstrating the Krishna factor. That person is, shining through with everything, that all the demeanor of Krishna. So indeed, you are feeling the presence of Krishna because you're with a person who is emulating Krishna's qualities. And that's the way we should always see it, because no one can claim that anything comes from me. Shabdaki Purusham Drishim from Bhagavad Gita. The ability in anything that I have is not mine. It comes from Krishna. So if we see a really beautiful person physically, or someone who's very intelligent, or someone who's got incredible talent, says, I wish I could dance like that, Just let those be a reminder. They are gifts from Krishna that are being exhibited before you. So in this way, we have to see Krishna. You can, if you really are a good student of Bhagavad Gita, you'll see from chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, Krishna is to be seen through the elements. Krishna is to be seen through the taste of water, through the light of the sun and the moon, through the original fragrance of the earth, by smelling a flower, and so on and so forth. So this is how Krishna is to be seen. Not just the person Krishna necessarily, but you have to see all the various facets of Krishna. So when you do that, you'll see, oh yes, this is Krishna. All that is beautiful, all that is divine, and also all that is sometimes challenging. Sometimes you hit a roadblock, and that is Krishna too. Hey, Krishna's helping me get started. He's testing me. So the question is really, where does Krishna not exist?
Thank you, Marge. So the next question is, how should we handle a friendship in our life that is clearly toxic?
Friendship being toxic, meaning in the overdrive. I mean, are we talking about super duper love? I'm not quite sure. Toxic. Toxic has different connotations. If you're talking about romance, then that does cause kind of blindness, so that you cannot see things in proper perspective. If that's what you mean by a toxic friendship, then I can see that being the case. Sometimes it's good to listen to your friends, or maybe not the toxic ones. Sometimes it's good to hear your parents too. I don't think that person is meant for you, or an aunt or an uncle says, or somebody really cares for you. And they say, I don't really think you should be with that person. That person will harm you. So the chemistry isn't right. But because there's a romance, because you've got some commodious arrows stuck in your backside and your arms, especially in the heart. Therefore, you cannot always see. So
Marge, I'm so sorry, Marge. It's hard to hear you again. This time it's a little bit hard to understand what you're saying. Can we moving you're using your phone, Marge?
Yes, and I haven't moved it. So, but I will just now. How does that do?
No, unfortunately, it's still the same. I mean, it was fine for a long time, and then it went out, and then it came back in, and it's gone out again. It's a little bit difficult. Maybe we can. Mohit, you're saying the volume is fine. Why don't we? It's the he's right. It's the clarity. That's right. Yeah.
So shall I exaggerate it and do a theater arts workshop with you?
Actually, that helped. I could understand better.
Okay, even though it sounds weird and odd, what I was trying to say is that if there's a toxic relationship, meaning you're blinded, sometimes it's good to just get a second opinion about that relationship and take advice. If you want to be successful. Vedic culture is about taking advice. It's not about being solo. It's not about just being lonely. It's about taking direction and guidance and advice. So much of it is like that. Our whole life is centered around taking some guidance, loving guidance. Is that okay?
Yes, Marge. Thank you.
I've got Krishna Chandra here now. Maybe he'll help us with this sound problem.
Sure. Do you want to continue the Q&A or wait for him to?
He's got his fingers on the phone right now.
Working.
What's the issue?
The issue is that the volume is okay, but the clarity of my voice is not. Therefore, I have been exaggerating a little bit here and there.
As you actually came in very clearly right now. You're
Anyways, friendship is all about, even if your communication is not so good, you still love each other, right?
Right. Thank you, Marge. So the next question is, how can we look at Krishna as our friend, but also give him the awe and reverence we're supposed to give him?
Well, we can appreciate Krishna through his various modes, by just observing what he does and what he says, and adjusting our sails a little bit. Meaning that when we hear from the Bhagavad Gita several times, Krishna says, I'm the super soul, I'm in your heart. Okay, in theory, sounds good, but how do I practically understand this? Well, open up your heart and open up your brain and let the little miracles register with you. I remember when I was walking in Hawaii, I'd left Honolulu and I was going towards the North Shore. And there was these, what was it? Was it pomegranates? I can't remember. It was a fruit tree next to me. It stood all by itself. And all the fruits were at the top, the good fruits. And I was tired and I was thirsty and wanting some nutrition. And I looked up and I said, oh, the best ones are the fallen fruit. And there's ants all over them. And I said, I really wish one of those guys at the top would come down. And at that instance, one came down. And he rolled down, came right to my foot before the ants had a chance to get at it. So to me, that registered as Krishna was listening to me. What else could it be? I will not accept it as coincidence. I would say it was a magical moment. And so I think every day magic happens with Krishna. So start to open up and start to register it. In fact, you might like to do some journaling about these little miracles that happen each day. I think it's very therapeutic. It makes your day fine. It's a nice way to put a closure to the day. So, did I answer the full question? We're talking about how to understand Krishna in the heart. Was there a little bit more to it?
I think you answered.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Marge. We have a lot of more questions, but unfortunately, we're running short on time. So
really? Krishna says I am time. Krishna says I am time.
Oh.
He's not giving any more time. Listen, can I just to make a little addition? To try to see Krishna. My experience is that you take that line from the Gita. Krishna says, I am time. So usually when you do things on time, he really fits in everything for you. You know, let's not just think of Krishna, the flute player. When you see a clock, that is Krishna. You see the sun and the moon, that is Krishna. So open up your understanding of Krishna. He is not just in the deity. He's not just Paramatma. He is manifest everywhere.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an amazing session. We're so, so grateful that you were here with us today. Thank you so much. So this is just an announcement for everyone else on the call. So we're sorry about yesterday's mix-up towards the end of the session, but we have some good news. So Vaisheshika Prabhu will actually be joining us today at 3:30 p.m. EDT. So he'll be giving a half an hour seminar today. So just the link should be on the new retreat pack that was sent out by our team. Check your email for the link for Vaisheshika Prabhu's lecture at 3:30.